first set of the day, the Callan Wardens waved goodbye to the Yomi Tanukis from the Smite Pro League promotional tournament. Similar stakes here in our second best of 3 of the day. Another elimination match, and unfortunately that means one more team going home. Fortunately, if we want to focus on the good, that means one more team moving on one step closer to realizing their dreams of playing in the Smite Pro League. We've got some great matches for you, not only the rest of this weekend, but today, my goodness. Xibalba Storm, Valhalla Valkyries. That's an elimination match. Kind of bottom left of center of your screen there if your eyes are wandering. Loser goes home. Winner will move on to face the loser of Wargs versus Scorpions, and then the loser of Gladiators versus Hounds will end up playing up against the Callan Wardens. So, we've got a knockout match, and then 2 best of 3s that are back in the upper bracket, and these are the 4 teams that most folks have been assuming would be 2 of the squads that would go to the SPL. It's Wargs and Scorpions battling it out, Gladiators and Hounds fighting as well, and Trelly, those upper bracket matches, well, don't worry, we're going to talk about the one we're about to watch, but those upper bracket matches really tell a big story and really set the stage for the remainder of this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone's surprised about the team that are currently in the winner's side, those top 4, but where they end up, that's where it's going to be interesting. So definitely some exciting matches to be had.
What are you laughing about in your lower third? Have you noticed your picture?
I didn't notice
You're on the couch over there and your head is back and you're laughing about, here you go, yeah, you can take a peek. Do you know what you're...
I'm chuckling at something, probably Miff in one of his classic one-liners.
That's right. You know that Miff.
Yeah, you know that Miff.
He's
a zany, wacky guy.
He lets them go. Valhalla Valkyries, our first team in this matchup, trying to stave off elimination and trying to send the Xibalba Storm home. And Trelly, this is a team that earlier on in the weekend, I think, was struggling to find an identity.
Right.
We're actually 1 match away from going home yesterday, able to turn it around, win a couple straight games, and now find themselves clean slate here in another elimination match. Warchi, Rottwen, TheRayShadow, WorstTurttle, NILLL, and Sir Choka, the head coach. I mean, with this team, I think if you talk about finding an identity, you've got to talk about Warchi playing AD carry, I suppose, right? It's been a lot of assassins. Yesterday, played a couple games of set, and that was seemingly the answer to some problems.
Can I just say, he looks hyped up. I mean, that
looks happy.
Yeah, that
the double
smile,
thumbs up.
That smile and point told me confidence, and I said it yesterday. We had Rottwen in for the interview, and he was standing right in front of me as I made this claim. Warchi looked lost until he found set. And the other issue I had with this is the
There's
fact
something poetic about that.
Yeah. the issue I had with it is that all the other teams got to watch Warchi's, progression into, I can play set ADC and it's going to pop off. You got to assume the Storm know this as well. So
right.
Does Warchi have a backup besides the set, or will they just not respect Bennett? If so, I have no issues with how the Valkyries have been able to change up their comp. I think the team in its entirety has really showed up. WorstTurttle, I've been very impressed with. And once Warchi found this god, because he's clearly straying away from magical ADCs and hunters entirely. He played Agni, didn't work out. He played Kama and Naja, didn't really work out. He played Set, and they looked unstoppable. So I'm imagining that they went home last night and they said, hey, let's maybe get a backup just in case.
Right.
And if that's the case, I'm excited to see what the Valks have in the back pocket.
It was 0-5 on Naja, 3-3 on Kama, so eventually the Kama got there, but it was still a loss. And then an 0-3 Agni game, and then a couple of set wins there for Warchi. So then the question, it's actually a similar conversation, Charlie, if we look at the other team in this matchup, the Xibalba Storm. It's MandoWarrior, Dingodile, Vyye, Valo, MaIachi, and Gyjae, head coach. If you're gonna talk about one team playing a lot of kind of zany picks in duo lane, you gotta talk about that with the Xibalba Storm as well. I actually think pick and ban wise, this could be one of the more unique AD carry strategy matchups we'll get.
Yeah. To the Storm's credit, Mando tried a hunter. Didn't work out.
You're right.
And he said, I'm done with that. Give me Assassins.
Actually, he has tweeted, like, guys, remember, I play solo, right? Yeah, like, as a disclaimer before all the sets kick off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, it was Ram.
Yeah, he tried Rama.
Loki.
Didn't work out. And he said, all right, give me Assassins from here on out. And they've been finding success with that. So I don't hate the, if it's not broke, don't fix it strategy. However, what happens when you're an assassin and you can't bully the hunter in the other lane because it's another assassin? That's going to be interesting. I think that Warchi and Mando are going to have to adapt their playstyles a little bit to go up against each other, but regardless, it's going to be interesting, right? Whenever you see just 2 assassins fighting off in this long lane, Maybe some ganks coming over here. Maybe just a kill lane if it does decide to come that way.
We constantly ask for jungle 1v1s, right? I mean, it's not the junglers, but if you want to watch two assassins fight, because like when supports leave this lane, say we get two assassins playing against one another in duo. When supports leave, are we just chilling and farming still? I suppose you could if you feel like you're building up pressure enough in that lane and you can kind of just farm and rotate and get buffs and stuff. You can play it like you normally would on AD carry, but I kind of want to see some fighting going on in duo if we end up sticking with non-ranged damaged carries in duo lane. And so, you know, it's two teams you would raise your eyebrows at. However, it's two teams that, with those styles of picks, have found success in their last couple of sets. And so, again, I think the strategy around picks and bans with these two teams becomes very interesting. I have to you focus on AD carry, rightfully so, but you got to shift the attention elsewhere. I think support, a hyper-important matchup in this as well, especially during laning phase if it's going to be assassins on either side of the lane. Rottwen's made some miracles happen for this team over the course of the weekend. Dingodile has, I would say, looked consistent for the Storm. Those two, big role to play in the duo lane if it's as weird as we think it might get. And we'll find out if it gets that weird in picks and bans for game number 1, an elimination match, our second and final elimination match of the day before we move back to the upper bracket for the second half of our games. The Valkyries will find themselves in the first pick slot. The Xibalba Storm over in second. And these are two teams who are focused on, you know, not only getting a composition that they're comfortable with, but taking away some of the comfort of the opposition. And, well, the most comfortable assassin duo laner for MandoWarrior has been Kleena, and the most comfortable duo lane assassin for Warchi has been Set. And already we've got to pivot to something else for both of these two.
Alquan? No, it's got to be the Thor. Wow, so maybe the Storm just try to take that one away. I was going to say, because if they don't want to pick it, okay, so yeah, the Storm are going to take it away. It looks like the Valks were trying to grab that one once again. Makes sense. The WorstTurttle, he may be the WorstTurtle, but he's a good outlaw. Go forth,
my children, and take over this land.
But he's the only turtle, so he's also the best, you know?
I guess that's true. There's no other turtles that I'm aware of that are in this tournament.
That's
so
right.
He's also the best.
Did have a really good Alquan, though. Yeah. You're right.
And I think Smart's taken away by the Storm. The Valks are just going to grab Tiamat, probably the highest contested mid laner in this tournament so far. It has been consistently looked at by pretty much everyone who's playing in that role. It's got safe poke. It's got good damage. It stacks up these proc items very well. And it doesn't reveal anything about your draft except you have a Tiamat in the mid lane. So definitely going to be a smart call there from the Valks. Very safe. Merlin's usually that number 2 pick, so I think the Tiamat and the Merlin are just going to be sort of traded back and forth. Neither one really gets banned, but both of them are getting picked up. This is the pick I was waiting for. What would be different? This time it's going to be the Ymir, something that a lot of these support players have been going to. It's going to get you some good pressure, and if you have what we assume is going to be a double assassin duo lane, you might need some of that pressure.
Seen one Ymir game from Dingodile so far this weekend. It was a 2-4 loss to the Guild Gladiators, a team that's playing in the upper bracket a bit later on today. An important facet of the duo lane there for the Xibalba Storm. I feel like with these teams and picking their assassins over in duo, they've waited for a bit later on in the draft to end up locking those in. So the Valhalla Valkyries, Xibalba Storm, depending on how they want to strategize around those picks, could keep something a bit more in the back pocket.
Almost time to start.
One of the best and most sought-after supports, Trelly, has been the Maui, and one of the best supports in this tournament has been Rottwen. So it seems like a fantastic match for the Valhalla Valkyries with an Achilles hover and an Achilles lock-in as well. So frontline initiation answered a bit here by the Valks.
Yeah, just sticking to the top of the tier list for now, it seems, right? Tiamat, Maui, Achilles, some of the more high contested picks that we've seen so far. Achilles in the solo lane. We've been loving these breastplate of regrowth builds where the Achilles just gets to zoom around the map for free, essentially.
Super annoying.
With that heal. Seems annoying to deal with, and without a bit of lockdown, could be difficult. The Ymir,
I'll go the positive route. Super fun.
It is super fun if you're playing it. If you're a Valks fan, you should be happy about this because you get to see, the juke shoes. Looks like it's going to be a soul. Wow. So there is going to be a bit of a switch up there, assuming that goes over to the duo lane as it has been for this tournament. That means that Mando will be accepting no more assassins for now. Doesn't mean that Warchi has to accept it. I do think that they probably practiced some sort of range damage just in case, but you're up against Soul. You're probably not going to be trying to outbox her no matter who you're playing. You just want to get safe farm, so I think you got a pretty decent shot at just sitting back under towers, trying to get your buffs whenever possible, and playing for late game. If the Storm know that, though, they may try to take away some of Warchi's safe ADCs, and more specifically, just take more shots at jungle. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a bad look. WorstTurttle has been popping off so far.
A lot of magical shred and burst picked by the Xibalba Storm right now. Granted, the Valks have the same, but they've actually picked up their solo laner, so we'll see if they end up going eye for eye on magical versus physical count. You're right, take a few shots towards the jungle. Xibalba Storm, take away the Robin. I wonder here, because when you talk about strategy and draft strategy, this is where it can get awkward. You say, all right, we've taken away the set. What else do we want or need to take away from Warchi over in duo? You know, the Naja didn't really work. Are we scared of that? The Camazotz looked okay, but didn't get a win. I think the Valks have hung up the Agni AD carry. I don't think we're going to be. I say AD carry, really just Agni over in duo. I don't think we're going to be seeing that again.
How crazy would it be if Warchi went home and just practiced Freya all night, just so that no one bans it, and then he just whips it out here and just
play like 10 Freya games in a row?
Yeah, just hits everything.
Well, it changes the dynamic when the opposing team doesn't feel like they have to worry about those picks, right? Any other team, we're thinking, oh, this could be an easy Freya lock. Really good physical. It's really telling when like the Ishtars of the world are left unbanned. We're not looking towards Ram at all. It's like a bunch of assassins and a couple support picks that end up getting banned away, and that's just the nature of these two teams and the identity that they've formed. Xibalba Storm, they're going to have to reveal solo and jungle. They'll get some physical damage online with the Amaterasu. First time, Trelly, we're going to see Ama this weekend.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Ama. I think it is slow in lane. You're definitely not getting pressure, but your safety is what you're really looking for. Just sitting back, power farming, running away from ganks whenever possible. So I like the Ama pick, especially if you're not looking to actually camp solo, which it doesn't really seem like Valo likes to play through the solo lane too much. Oftentimes MaIachi's left on an island trying to fend off ganks himself, so just get some more safety in that lane, and I think Ama does bring that. You just kind of pop your heel, sit underneath tower, and say, hey, I'll rotate at level 20. You know, see you guys when there's a team fight happening. So don't hate that one there from the Storm. Finally, though, the Valks get to show us what's going on. Again, I think best in slot would be a hard carry jungle, and Freya is not the kind of comp that the Valks have been going with so far. You know, the Camazotz is still open. It doesn't have a great matchup into Soul, but it's also not bad. You're safe, and you can clear the wave. That's pretty much what most assassins do up against the Soul. The Susano would bring some of that hard carry potential in the jungle, and the Camazotz will be hovered, so it looks like Warchi was feeling the same thing. And it looks like the Susano at the very. I like the Susano.
Yep.
I do think that it's gonna have good pressure. You can still look to go for some early ganks. In late game, you absolutely one shot, and they are gonna lock that one in. So Warchi sticking with its assassins through and through.
Haven't seen Susano yet this weekend from WorstTurttle, but we have seen the carry style jungle. The Ao Kuang went 11, 1, and 3 against the Titans before sending them home in Game 3 on the Thor at 2, 1, and 12. Naja the lock-in for the Storm. Set up out of the jungle, set up out of the solo lane. Good CC from the Ymir as well. And some disengage on the carries. Yeah, it feels like the Valkyries between a Tiamat, a Maui, and Achilles and a Susano. Wonderful composition. Feels like the only question mark has got to be how does this Camazotz end up looking?
Yeah, and we've seen it once. You highlighted that it did end up getting online, did some decent damage.
I mean, it was like 3 and 3.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's all you could ask for, I guess, in this case. If WorstTurttle just runs away with the game early, as Susano can do, then you're not really counting too much on Camazotz except for structure damage later on. You know, how your Phoenix Siege is looking. Oh, if we have 2 assassins that can actually close gap and get to the bird, you're not going to care too much. However, when you see Naja, it sort of stunts your early game aggression a little bit, right? You usually, as Susano, you want to go blink. You want to get active early. You want to just be engaging. But without a CC immune ult, you always have to be looking out for that sash. Because if you get taken up anywhere near Soul or Merlin, you're dead when you hit the ground. So I think that is going to stop a little bit of what WorstTurttle wants to do. But as long as you're staying away from the Naja and say, hey, get your wards down. Whenever we see Valo, I go to the opposite side of the map, that sort of thing. I still think there's some room for the Valks to get aggressive early on.
It's actually interesting because, you know, Soul seems like the the obvious and a really good pick here for the Xibalba Storm, but if MandoWarrior just straight up doesn't feel comfortable, I mean, obviously you feel a certain level of comfort if you're picking the Soul at all. But if it's not up to par with what Mando could have been playing, if you wanted to stick with those assassins, then how much is the Soul really adding to your team comp? These are super unique ways of playing the game, and interesting, therefore, compositions to end up breaking down. And I guess that's sort of the line then, Trelly, and a lot of what we talked about early in Season 10 and early in these tournaments and when tournament metas unfold. It's the balance between what is top-tier, on-paper, perfect team comp versus what you and your team are comfortable playing, right? Those two things are battling out. If you're comfortable enough, it doesn't matter if it's slightly less than optimal, or if it's optimal enough, it doesn't matter if you're not completely comfortable this early in the year. And so the Valhalla Valkyries, they might have something here that they can make work. What does a duo lane like that, in your mind, look like? Maui plus Kama, Soul versus Ymir. Are you likely getting pressure if you're Soul Ymir in the early goings?
I mean, I think Soul, Ymir is just going to give so much pressure as is. So with the Soul there, with the stacking of the heat, I'm thinking they could if they play it right.
Well, the Xibalba Storm a bit more standard in their composition. We'll see if standard wins the day in game number 1 with J-Mac and Gormizer.
Yeah, it's a more meta-standardized style of draft from the Xibalba Storm, but the Valkyries return to form with their double assassins, Warchi, once again piloting the Camazotz in the duo lane. And WorstTurttle back on another hyper carry style of assassin in the Susano. And Gormizer, there are 20 picks and bans every single time that one of these games goes through. 11 of those, if you're including Ao Kuang in this count, 11 of those were assassin-based.
I'd include Ao Kuang in that, by the way.
So that's 11. If not, then we're still looking at 10 were assassin-based picks or bans throughout those 20. And that just shows how much emphasis these two teams specifically really do put on the assassin god pool.
And I think a lot of that lately, some of that is going to be because the junglers are very important right now. Another chunk of that is because the Valkyries are running 2 assassins every time they've been playing, really, right? I mean, outside of the Angi, I think they've only run assassins. Warchi has not played a long-range character. And so being able to focus that out, I think the Storm did a little bit of their homework. You still get the Camazotz, which I think is someone that is safe, someone that is able to survive and does a decent amount of damage, but not infallible. And we saw, I think it was actually yesterday, that Camazotz have some struggles. So there's definitely a lot that still maybe needs to be done for the Valkyries to find success here. But they're going back to a strategy that's been working for them. I'm going to keep my eyes on the Storm, though, because it shows that they've been watching, that they've been paying attention and doing their homework. And I really like, the desk kind of mentions it, but with the Ymir freeze, with the Naja, admittedly we don't see them a lot, at least this year, last year even. But Amaterasu, you have really good playmakers on your team. Some of those are going to be much easier. I mean, drop of a hat, just decide that you want to go for a fight. You've got several stuns, freezes, things like that. And so with Vyye playing on a Merlin that is going to deal a decent amount of damage, and then with Mando presumably following up with this Soul, not only are you talking about pressure in duo and maybe an easy duo lane gank, but you're talking about team fight potential that should favor the Storm in general skirmishes, right? When we're talking big 5-on-5 ultimates, some of these assassins diving into the backline might cause a little more trouble than you would like, but Merlin has some decent disengage. Soul has decent disengage. If the Storm can keep their backline alive through some of that initial dive, I think that most of these engagements are going to continue to turn right back around in their favor.
This right here is why we see so much emphasis on Soul in general. Decent push, no matter which support that you get there, but also so much towards the Bastions as well, as one of those has almost been eliminated from the duo lane already. But just a poke that's been able to be put out onto it. Since Camazotz, Warchi's not able to safely walk up and clear this lane, even though Camazotz does have decent ranged damage. Some of that can be blocked just by Dingodile standing in the middle of the wave, prevents maybe those archers from taking damage. And one of those abilities also is only single target with the Vampiric Bat. So, bit of tough early game for Warchi and Rottwen. Not sure if Valo got spotted out on a ward here. Warchi's been able to sustain back up. Valo wants to try and get a party started in the duel lane. We'll walk up. Sash jumped away by Warchi, so we'll avoid the CC from Valo, and that should spell the end of that gank for the Storm.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of moments, unfortunately, that kind of fall flat like that. Specifically over in the duo lane, Camazotz is just hard to gank, and I feel like with WorstTurttle, depending on the engagement, also hard to gank with. So it feels like the duo lane is, can Valo catch somebody, and is it pre-level 5, which means you don't have a lot of wiggle room anymore to make it happen, to get towards Warchi. If the answer is yes, you might be able to make something happen, but I don't mind them just showing face, being a little aggressive, forcing something to happen. They don't get any relics, though, and so it's just going to be a small reset. They might be able to find something more, but this is, I think, the amount of pressure you need to apply. Either get the fight or get the buff, find success in one way or another.
Well, Rottwen goes in aggressive, uses his jump to find a stun.
Big
but
rotation.
Now we have a rotation in from the mid laner and from WorstTurttle. Valo sticks around a little too long, gets caught out, and he drops down. And Mando will be short to follow after the 4v3 comes up all positive for the Valhalla Valkyries. 2 picks and maybe a third. Hook does connect from Rottwen, but Dingodile too far into the tower to go any further.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where your success, if you were the Storm there, is just getting the purple. Not picking it up, just dropping it for yourselves. I think the minute it's on the ground, you need to start retreating. You know, Valo, you're not there for the kills anymore. I don't think you're going to be getting kills. And admittedly, we can see a little bit more, but you have to imagine, especially with the pathing that Warchi took, not going back around the purple through the tower, going aggressive, up around the top side of that purple buff to stay in that fight. When it's a 2v3, that's your sign that there's something going on a little beyond this, right? It's not a 2v3. There's 2 more on the way. And unfortunately for them, even though it was a good wall, Dingodile wasn't able to throw it up and stop enough from happening to be able to save teammates. And so Valo stays a little longer than they would like. And I don't know that it's going to work out here.
Oh, man. Well, at least for the Storm, they're able to take down the enemy's support, but WorstTurttle is going to turn this one around, waiting for the Disapparate to fade away. Dashes into the path, and a perfect cutoff by the double assassins of the Valhalla Valkyries. That puts them up 3-1 to start this game. Unfortunate for Rottwen trading out his life there, but giving another kill to WorstTurtle is a great way for the Valks to kick it off.
Yeah, Rottwen, look, worth it every single step of the way, right? You're a support. You died. Boo-hoo. Your jungler's 2-0-1. You do not care that you went down there, especially since 2 of those kills are on the opposing, carry player, and that means that Warchi is inherently getting at least a little more farm, and that is going to be so nice for your team, right? You're already lacking a little bit in terms of range. Soul's a tower killer. We've seen it in the past. We know what she's capable of. Camazotz can be, but you got to be about 30 units closer, right? 50 units closer to make sure that happens. So it's a lot more of a commit for these assassins to be able to do the same. You need to be winning these fights, and you need to be winning them as handily as they have been. And you can't be getting caught out. You can't be finding opportunities where maybe Mando can turn it around.
Man, it has just been
What a good
so
pull.
much pressure thrown towards Mando, but Valo and Dingo are here to help out. The landfall is good to pull Mando back in, but Valo has already taken Warchi out of the fight, and the 4-man rotation from the Xibalba Storm answers back. But now what would the answer be? Maybe to the right side. WorstTurtle finds the pull on MaIachi, but not enough follow-up damage, and instead, Xibalba Storm, they find their 2 picks on left, and they go right to the Fury.
I cannot overstate how much I love this. One of the things I was just about to say, and it was specifically about the Valkyries, was you've got all these kills. What have you done with it? There was like a small invade on the purple, but you had lost yours before. So it was kind of like a neutral thing, maybe some experience that goes on the gods. Instead, the Storm come over, they get their kills, and they make a play on the map. Again, macro play wins you these games a lot more than most of the other things, so immediately making a play on the map and making a big one at that is going to be beneficial for you. If it's something that gets you ahead, that's one thing, but even if it just stabilizes the game for you, suddenly you're in the conversation with, well, the Valkyries couldn't get it now. We removed that option from them. We got to make a play, keep things in control. I love a call like that, just being able to immediately recognize where your strengths are and using your gods to their capabilities, right? We know Merlin and Soul both have really good damage numbers, so make sure you use it on something to early. I mean, that is a very fast Gold Fury, earlier than what we got to see pretty much all of last year, but that is something that I love to see from the team, and if the Storm are going to make calls like that, the Valkyries are going to have to make sure every single one of these kills turns into something that matters.
Maybe get a little help from MaIachi on this right side, because he has been bullied by WorstTurtle and NILLL for pretty much the entirety of this game. Now, with Golden Blade online, MaIachi's clear. A little bit easier on that right side, but I mean, something we've been talking about with the Sigil starter item is if you're going Sigil, you're typically just kind of surrendering the early game to the opposing team. It's really not until once you get that item upgrade that you really see the big value from there. So it might be a bit of a slow game for MaIachi, as long as he can make it to endgame. We know what Amaterasus can do. We've seen it time and time again. We see the poke back towards NILLL. Use the ultimate to actually immune the sash from Valo. So that's a nice opening for the solo lane.
Yeah, and honestly, I like to see, again, it's a small amount of presence, but now NILLL doesn't feel as safe over in right as they should have. Valo, though, might be caught out.
Valo does use the ultimate, but there's a couple more ultimates on the side. Oh, the Valkyries are collapsing onto the assassin and the jungler for the Xibalba Storm. Nets the Valks an additional kill, but now what will they go from there? It seems that maybe to the mid-Harpies or maybe a pick on Vyye if he steps too far forward. Will just be the camp for now for the Valkyries.
This is where things can get a little more rusty. Rottwen's actually going to block himself in. You can drop the island, man, and run through, but Dingodile's just going to follow him.
Well, Vyye does go down, maybe trying to step up to try and grab the kill. Dingo does find a double freeze, and that's a kill for the Xibalba Storm in the fight, but they have lost so much more in response. At the end of it all, a 1-for-3 trade, and maybe more of the two carries on the left side of the map, boxing it out, but MandoWarrior with a level lead and with the health and sustain advantage will force Warchi out.
I want to be honest, I don't know where to call the pace of this game and where it's going to go. I mean, 10 kills and just shy of 9 minutes, looking like it might be 11. I think that what you are seeing is two very active teams with a lot of damage, as evident by WorstTurttle right there. And while it might not immediately end in kill, you're seeing this trade back and forth. I mean, what was 2 levels a second ago for MandoWarrior is now just a little over a level. Like what was a pretty hefty deficit for Vyye maybe grows a little further for TheRayShadow. And so it's an interesting bounce back and forth, and the charts reflect it perfectly. Where just sometimes you come in, you're looking for a fight, and you're able to find success. You see it in like 3 peaks there for the Valkyries. You see 2 pretty massive peaks in favor of the Storm that are just giving them a little bit of gold, a little bit of experience that go in their favor. And JMac, at this point, it's just a much more flashy tug of war than what we're used to, right? It's not just gold and map farm that's shifting back and forth. They're getting the kills to do it as well. But it is something that's going to have to stabilize for both teams. If you get a little more consistency, which I guess at this point I'll look at the Valkyries since they were the ones who won the last fight. If you can get the next one and the one after that, turn that into, at that point, maybe a Pyromancer, another Fury since it just respawned. I think that's really where their strengths are going to be able to shine, is just trying to make sure that these fights keep going in their favor. And a lot of that will come down to the fact that, one, WorstTurtle's 2-0-4. 6 out of 6 affected kills. Yeah, absolutely want him around. As well as Rottwen, who, while they've died and haven't affected every single kill, Rottwen has been a really huge portion of this. Some of the ults have been just absolutely perfect, but the hooks as well we saw earlier on in lane. And so I think this Maui is going to be a game changer. TheRayShadow's been putting out some decent damage already, 3-0-2. Has a decent build as well. I think they're going to be hitting hard, and the Storm are going to have to figure out how to weather that.
Very worried for the Xibalba Storm in regards to his Tiamat, because we've seen what, just today alone, what Joshi was able to do on a pick like this in game number 1 of our very first set. And if TheRayShadow is left to continue this free farm, this 3-0-2 Tiamat could quickly get out of control very quickly. But MaIachi, the one in danger now. WorstTurttle will go in. Ultimate early from MaIachi. Beads from WorstTurttle, and a dive in by NILLL. And this seems to be the answer for the Valkyries in every one of their engagements. Just give them sheer manpower comparatively. But now it's a pull towards the Primal Fury. 4 versus just 1. Rottwen's got to do a lot to steal this one away. We'll pull 2 off the Fury, but it resets back to the Storm anyways. And they grab that, but now Valo on the wrong side of the fight. 2 there. The wall is not going to stop these 2 from diving in. Valo has made it out for now. Warchi will dive in, but dive away immediately. The Valkyries cannot find any picks off the Fury for the Storm.
I really admire what they're going for. Whether you're looking at a potential kill coming out of Rottwen, or I should say steal coming out of Rottwen, or if you're looking for the kill. I think that that's a really well-timed. If you're looking for the steal, ultimate a little later. If you're looking for kills, I love the way they separated it, because immediately that pull brought people into Warchi's zone. Allows you to take a 2-on-1, 2-on-2, as opposed to jumping into the entirety of the Storm. Gives a little bit of an opportunity for TheRayShadow to rotate in from mid, try to catch them from the right-hand side, see if you can pick up anybody with some surprise damage. Unfortunately, again, there's a lot of survivability on the Storm that was able to get them just far enough away. The people that get pulled in aren't going to be the easiest to kill off. And so while the Valkyries tried incredibly hard, you get to see them albeit limping, but still getting away for the Storm. Means that 2 objectives now going in their favor. Yeah, the kills haven't been adding up, but kills can slow down, especially when you look at, MaIachi being targeted pretty heavily. You're going to get to your build eventually. Same thing for someone like MandoWarrior. 2 deaths, but you're going to get to your build eventually. I think the one that stands out the most to me right now is going to be Valo, who has started aggressively, then immediately into some prod items. So, like, trying to survive, which admittedly is something Naja struggles with most of the time. We've seen it a lot. I'm going to keep my eyes on what Valo is going to be doing, because I think that this build, and specifically what their goal is in this game, is going to be very important. Right now, I don't see someone who's trying to be the carry. I see someone who's being the setup, the Naja for the team. And then Mando or Vyye, or at maybe later points MaIachi, are going to be the ones that just absolutely tear anyone apart if they get picked up by the Sash or the Windfire wheels.
I'm curious to see how the game progresses for the solo laners later on, but in the here and now, it's Warchi being targeted out. Barely makes it up to the bat out of hell. That second hit of the Stellar Burst would have been enough to kill Warchi, but he's able to make it up just in time. And once again, we see the Valkyries dogpile on top of MaIachi. 2 versus 1, but needs the execute to finish the kill there. Will be yet another one on the right side of the map for the Valks, and that's where their success lies. Find these picks over on top of MaIachi, punish this Amaterasu early, because we know what an Ama can do late game if left unchecked. But that seems to be kind of the common answer for a lot of squads over the course of this weekend. It's been really bully out this solo lane.
Yeah, and honestly, it's worked out for a lot of the teams that have done it, right? You control one of the frontliners, slow down, especially considering the Kukulkan performance we saw. I guess that was yesterday morning. It feels like maybe a longer ago. When you're just absolutely running the show, right? You've got the mitigations online. You are what feels like unkillable. I think shutting that down faster, sooner, really helps your team out. Unfortunately, all of that focus hasn't really given much to the Valkyries. They've had a lot of kills, 2 now at least, with TKOs on top of that, over on the right-hand side of the map. And what does it get them? Like, I mean, technically, I guess the totem, right? They're even losing that 6-3. So it's not like there's really anything insane in their favor. It's just kind of getting the kills onto MaIachi. And yeah, it sucks for MaIachi. I mean, you're 2 levels down. That's not going to feel that great. But as long as you can get, 1-2 more items online, you're still going to be able to do some of the frontline things that you need to. I want to see if they go for another gank like that, immediately swivel over to that Pyromancer, right? Try to get something on the map afterward to make sure it exceeds a little further, because you're winning 8-4, but the experience, or I should say the gold, is not leaning in your favor just yet.
I just looked up and I noticed something, Gore. What are the fans going to chant instead of "Coup" now at the world stage? We have the fans in the audience. They're all going "Coup" when the totem of coup is up. Now it's a totem of skulls.
Well, if you look at the word skulls, hear me out here.
There
is a coup in skulls.
Right, but it's perhaps more like
so
a
hasn't the spirit of coup really lived on?
It has, but a 3rd Gold Fury for the Xibalba Storm, maybe the more important part of this. A dive on top of Valo, who's got Windfire wheels. He'll get out, and once more, the Xibalba Storm grab themselves an objective, a 2,000 gold lead. Down in kills, but up 3 Furies to 0 for the Valhalla Valkyries. They have been not able to find an answer to the objective play of the Storm, and the Storm are now going to check them on the Pyromancer as well. Valkyries do manage to grab that one. Dingodile gets pulled in, immediately uses the ultimate. And MaIachi here to try and bail out his support. WorstTurttle is going in for the kill, finds the pull, and the execute is good from NILLL to find their first kill in the team fight. And now still a continued dive through. TheRayShadow goes in aggressively with the rest of his squad. The second execute not going to land because Warchi has already taken that one. Make it 3 and 4. Now stacked up for the Valkyries. It's a Gold Fury for the Xibalba Storm, but finally an answer back for the Valks.
And not only that, a pretty massive answer at that. I mean, you get a huge swing of kills in your favor, but realistically, you tear the front line of the Storm down almost instantaneously. I mean, Dingodile was gone in the blink of an eye, to the point where, Vyye, Mando didn't have a lot to hide behind. MaIachi got poked out pretty early on. And so really well played by the Valkyries, not only to stick to that fight, but just because of where they are. It's a little bit of that true damage coming right from TheRayShadow. And I think that a lot of it, I mean, 3-1-6, hard to look at the Tiamat and say that they're not having a huge impact this game. A lot of that's going to be in the build. You've got a lot of damage, a lot of mana right there, but survivability as well. I haven't seen TheRayShadow take many stray hits. And then when you've got the dive that WorstTurttle, Warchi can provide, long-range engage that Rottwen's able to bring, and then just straight up the execute from NILLL. I mean, that was more than enough to rip apart the Storm there. So you're going to need a lot more, I think, from Dingodile, a lot more from MaIachi at the upfront to try and peel. Also, you have to be worried about this burst, have to be worried about this dive. Trying to figure out how to deal with the 2 assassins. Most of the time, if one jumps in, you can typically turn and burn, right? Just kill that guy, cool, he's punished for it. When there's a second assassin, if you turn to burn 1, let's say you turn and you're looking at WorstTurttle, everybody's going for it. Tried it the other day on the Alquak. Didn't work out well there. Because if you do successfully get rid of WorstTurttle, which is already a big ask, Warchi just gets to go massive, right, in the back. So really it is this 2-pronged attack from the Valkyries that has been helping them out. And this is with all those assassin bans, so that means the Valkyries definitely has something that's cooking for them, and they have been doing incredibly well.
I think the thing that maybe worries me the most about the current state of the game, sure, it's even, maybe 1,000 gold between the 2 teams at this point, 1,500. But if you look at where all the kills that the Storm have gotten, it's in the dual lane. 1 onto Warchi, 3 onto Rottwen, but Warchi's ahead by a level. Rottwen's even, if not maybe slightly ahead of Dingodile, so all of the attention that's been put on the Valkyries team just feels like it's kind of been squandered a bit. Sure, all these objectives are good, but now Mando can't survive the burst because look at this. The 2 assassins have 3 items each online. He's just going to get 2-tapped by anyone that walks up now.
And that was so well timed as well. Like, Aegis is just about to respawn, but you pick off 1, Dingodile's alone in the jungle. That should be a pretty easy pick off, even with the freeze going their way. And it's just clean play from the Valkyries at this point. It started out rough. I mean, you highlighted it well. But with all those kills specifically falling onto Rottwen, and more importantly, those early kills that were in retaliation the Valkyries picked up in response to Rottwen's death, all went onto WorstTurttle, of all people. And when your jungler gets off to such a huge start, that's when you start seeing the pickup at very early on. That's what helps you get to like a Crusher as super early as it does. But the Brawlers was really that second power spike that suddenly just lets you start giving them the people's elbow, right? You're just taking them down constantly. And there's not much they can do about it. I mean, you know, I mentioned TheRayShadow being an issue, and still is, damage numbers, kill-wise, things like that. You can't even start thinking about TheRayShadow because there's been a 14k damage Susano in your face half the time.
Mando trying to go for a steal on the Fury, but body blocked by Warchi. Valkyries will finally grab a Fury of their own after only having to settle for a Pyromancer earlier on. Swing in by Rottwen, doesn't find anybody with the stun. And everybody's too far away now for the hook to even try and find a target in this regard. So the Valhalla Valkyries have now answered back with objective play of their own and are starting to find some substantial leads. 10,000 experience, probably the more annoying ones to have to deal with if you are the Xibalba Storm. Such a deficit in pretty much every single role, 1 to 2 levels across the board. 2 on the right side, 2 between your carries, and then 1 in the mid and the support role as well. Xibalba Storm only a few thousand gold behind, but that is only getting worse as it goes through. Yet another Pyromancer for the Valks. They grabbed a Fury this time around. We'll get their second Pyromancer to boot.
And the last time we had looked at the charts before that, it was about 2,000 gold in favor of the Storm, but it was still 2,000 experience in favor of the Valkyries. So the Valkyries here have just been farming better. They have been playing the map a little better. Yes, they lost those first 3 Furies, but the Storm didn't really do much. Like, after the third one fell, they weren't really playing as proactively as they could have.
Fire Giant started up by the Storm. WorstTurttle is going to be the first one here. He sees the ring and knows that this is happening now. Charging Typhoon early, but he hits 3 people with it. Now TheRayShadow and NILLL have joined the fight. The Xibalba Storm get the Fire Giant. Can they get out of this dangerous situation? Valo, low HP, pulled back by Rottwen. Beads are gone, and the landfall takes him down. While in the backline, TheRayShadow has found one of his own. Warchi, all the while split pushing on the left side of the map, has taken the towers over there. Dingodile, the last one, still roaming through the jungle, but this may be the end of the line for the Ymir. 3 kills and a tower on the left side, maybe more as Warchi still goes in aggressive on Vyye. Vyye is low, Aegis is down, and jump in by TheRayShadow, stunned by MaIachi, who finds one pick, but it is a 4-man sweep for the Valhalla Valkyries.
Now, you know, J-Mac, sometimes math, especially on cast, can be ill-advised. That just wasn't worth it, though, right? You lose 4, that's a TKO on MaIachi, might as well have been a 5th kill. You don't lose your Phoenix, which is nice, and admittedly, the biggest thing that the Storm do right there is they stop the Valkyries from getting the Fire Giant. That's pretty much the only thing they can count as a win, is that the Valkyries aren't going to have it. Technically, MaIachi still has the buff around his belt, but really, you've just got another, what, like 3 minutes of calm before the Valkyries really can start getting aggressive. I think, honestly, Warchi could have and maybe should have stuck to the left side Phoenix. It's always difficult when you don't have the FG buff, especially, you know, 20, 22 minutes in. That you just aren't able to burn it down. But I think, you know, knowing that what we know, which is that they didn't kill off MaIachi and only got 1 more kill from that gank on mid, might have been worthwhile to open it up. Honestly, doesn't hurt them that they didn't either, though. I mean, you're still going to be able to pick up all these neutral camps. You're still going to be able to fall back, have a lot to spend, so you're hitting really massive power spikes. And what you're really seeing is just a disjointed effort. I mean, the Storm, after that fight, after they get the objective, which they almost lost at the same time, were really separated in how they were falling back, and some of that is good pulls and good setup from the Valkyries, but some of that's just weird pathing choices from the Storm. And then the Valkyries just get to eat them alive. I mean, it is very simple to just run at them. 50-50 a Fire Giant, you lose it, but you kill 3 immediately, and Warchi is able to get a lot of pressure on left while you're doing that. That's not even the 5-on-5, it was a 5-on-4, and the Storm still end up losing a lot of it. So I really do think, unfortunately here, and you know, it's easy to highlight it because right now, Valo, Dingodile, not the craziest slash lines. Dingodile is going to be in the line of fire pretty often. And so I'm not necessarily ever upset when a Ymir has like 4 deaths, 1 and 4. It's nothing crazy. I don't think Valo has gotten to have the performance they want, because even though it's 1 and 4, the assist column sticking just at 1 means that you have not been providing enough for the rest of the team. No one's been able to follow you up the way that you would have wanted. And so I think there's a lot of room for growth in their team fight to make sure that the Storm can try to find success, but it's going to be an uphill battle now.
We're all over the Primal Fury for both of these teams. MaIachi going to walk forward up against NILLL on the Achilles. Sundering Axe now online. For this Achilles, NILLL will go forward. He'll get frozen on the other side of the wall. The landfall won't pull anybody, but it will block off a small path before it's called off. Rottwen low in this fight. TheRayShadow goes in again, and the execute from NILLL has netted the first of the match for Xibalba Storm in this fight. That's 2 now with MandoWarrior down, and then Valo is in execute threshold, but it's not needed because TheRayShadow has the damage for his team to take them down. It is just MaIachi and Vyye left alive. WorstTurttle not going to find the pull, and MaIachi forced out, chased away by 3. It is a 3-for-1 trade for the Valks of the Fury.
The front line for the Storm cannot withstand the onslaught that the Valkyries are throwing at them. I mean, even being able to immune most of the CC wasn't enough to give them. I'm surprised that the Valkyries aren't just playing this aggressive. Just kill Vyye, because there's not much they can do in response.
Vyye has all relics, but didn't use a single one during this fight. He's able to take Rottwen down with him, but MaIachi is now stuck between 3. Has Dingodile on the way through. Stun off the mark by TheRayShadow, and a dash good by MaIachi, but how far will that take him? Maybe with Dingodile on the way, it's enough, but Dingodile is on the opposite end of this fight. It's WorstTurttle picking up the kill on the solo laner, and TheRayShadow, level 20 on the Tiamat, near full build, and nearly topping the damage charts alongside his solo laner.
If Dingodile had joined that fight, I want to get this out immediately, had joined and tried to save MaIachi, Dingodile just dies again. I don't think there's a way you walk into that as a Ymir, especially, I mean, your build's not bad, but with the amount of damage that you've been taking and the level deficit that you're at, you are not going to be able to survive the onslaught if they turn their eyes towards you. I think the best thing that the Storm were able to do there was get a kill on Warchi, and even though it doesn't necessarily mean as much, but kill off Rottwen as well, right? Slow him down a little bit. You stop the Fury, but it costs you a lot of your lives. And now it might cost you an FG. You know, the way that they've been playing has been very flippant. And so if they can get this, if they can get in here for a 50-50, maybe that helps get them back into the game, but they're going to have to figure out their grouping a lot better.
Warchi's got a Runic Bomb. Valo tries to get out of the fight. Warchi goes back in alongside NILLL to the back line. MandoWarrior again a casualty. A double execute for NILLL. Valo pulled back in, falling low. Execute will be waiting on the ground for Valo, and as soon as he lands, he is gone. It's a triple kill for the solo laner of the Valkyries, and the Fire Giant pulled once more as Vyye and MaIachi once again the last two standing for this fight.
Honestly, outside of experience, the best thing that you got from killing Warchi is that he's got the runic bomb right now, and so that means that it's not going to be used. A small little win in an otherwise, again, fight that just does not work out well for you. Your front line is going in staggered, you don't have the backup, and then you keep sticking around for fights. I mean, why they're standing in the jungle here if you're the Storm. I can't imagine you're getting anything done with just the two of you going into that. So now you are completely staggered. You could have been pushing up waves, trying to get some experience. On left, there's some camps that need to be done. You're not taking that Fire Giant. And if you're trying to, then you're already having conversations about Hail Mary plays. I feel like the Storm aren't willing to concede when they've had these losses, and unfortunately right now, that's played right into the Valkyries' hands. They've been taking this clean. They've been getting aggressive well. NILLL with a triple kill that fight. Look, you got 3 undying players, 8-0 and 12, 6-0, 19, 9-0 and 14.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Look, you don't got to be a professional analyst here to tell you what's going wrong. I mean, just look at the numbers. It's just unfortunate play from the Storm that the Valkyries are eating up and ripping apart. And now you've got 5 people who have Fire Giant on them. You've got some insane team fight that's been going your way. I don't even think you care if this Primal Fury gets taken by the Storm, because what does it mean? It's pennies compared to the 2 towers, as well as the Phoenixes that you could get. I mean, the Valkyries are in a position where from here, Phoenixes are usually more difficult to try and break down. But with the way the fights have been going, I do not believe it's far-fetched to think that they could win within the next few seconds. Or minutes. Definitely not seconds.
Not
it's going to take a little longer than that.
Yeah, the few seconds are over now.
Yeah.
But there is still a runic bomb in Warchi's pocket. And maybe that's a good thing
Yeah,
for
that
the
he didn't
Valkyries
get to use
because
it earlier.
they didn't need to use it on the Fire Giant. So now they can use it and chunk one of these towers down. Maybe you save it for a potential Phoenix push. I wouldn't use it on this tier 2 tower. Just a few auto attacks ought to break this one down. We'll go ahead and tank that one up, no problem. Warchi not even in the area to use it this time around. So another tier 2 gone, only 1 left standing for the Xibalba Storm. That's all the way on the solo side of the map, but does not seem the Valks have any interest to the right-hand side as they've split their team between these 2 on the left and the mid instead.
I do like the split they had, though. And I actually like this one maybe a little bit more, right? The double assassin, really good at dive, but you've got the runic bomb available on someone who's going to be able to jump in and retreat if needed. Warchi's also pretty mobile, so you're able to bounce back and forth between these lanes. Has a speed buff around his belt, accompanying the one that WorstTurttle has. So rotations are going to be pretty simple here. This is where you start to feel the lack of like a range carry, though, right? Not having a physical carry, not having one of the few mage carries that are working really well. You can't just step into the tower and poke it. You got a full commit, and that's going to cause a little more trouble. There's still decent damage from the Storm, and if you're tanking the Phoenix as well, that damage can add up really fast.
Such heavy poke that TheRayShadow can throw out from a range as well on this Tiamat. You can see that Dingodile has been sustaining a lot of that poke back towards himself. The Valkyries are playing this very slow up on the Phoenix line. 1.5 minutes left on their Fire Giant power play. Rottwen goes in, finds the pull onto just Valo, who immediately, Vyye, who has pulled himself back out of this fight. A quick flicker to retreat through, a pull on top of MaIachi. We'll get a decent bit of poke back for the Valkyries. They've all 5 grouped up on the left side for just a moment, but will now once again go to their 4-1 split.
But here's where you got to look at it. Look at the Phoenix health bar. If you have a Hunter in this composition, then suddenly that Phoenix is half health. It's not dead, but it is way, way lower than what you've been able to do. You have to essentially win the team fight, then you can look at the objective here if you are the Valkyries.
Wall blocks away NILLL. TheRayShadow goes to the backline to dive against Mando. And Mando does not have the relics to sustain through. WorstTurttle dives in. Vye's gone, Dingo's gone, and Valo once more. It is just MaIachi, the lone one standing, and he alone cannot defend against this Titan, as it should fall down. And the Valhalla Valkyries, with, again, this double assassin composition, pull ahead for game number 1, and they will start off their set with a nice win.
And here's how I think this one needs to be framed. The Valks got 4 times your kills. that means something went wrong play on field. Right? It's there. Sometimes it can be like, okay, hey, the draft wasn't working out. They were able to do X, Y, or Z. It's just your draft was fine, but there were a lot of moments, and unfortunately, after they suffered a little early on, they weren't rectified in game. And the problem is that they kept happening there, and the Valkyries were able to absolutely tear it apart. You get a Naja that's going in after the Ymir has died. Cool, that's just 2 kills now that your team has gotten. So the Valkyries play it incredibly well. This dive comp has been absolutely demolishing. They got knocked down here, and it was kind of questionable. It was like, I don't know, Warchi, like, maybe you need to play someone with range. And then yesterday's game 1 didn't necessarily do a lot to win us over on it. Then you get 2 set games. This specific Camazotz game as well, I think goes to showcase what this double dive can do, and it goes to showcase what this team has to offer. That was very clean Smite from them for a majority of it. Some of the early game maybe needs some cleanup, but after that, I mean, they were dominating objectives, they were dominating fights, and if they do that again, then they've got a clear path forward.
The Storm dominated the duo lane early of the Valkyries, but unfortunately, the other 3 members of the map were able to step it up. The Valkyries find themselves a nice win in game number 1. Can they keep up that same momentum? We'll find out in game number 2 right after this.
Just take a look at yourself. Do you really think it's gonna help if you're always fighting yourself, trying to forget how you felt? Just take a look at yourself. Can't even be your own friend, cause you're way too stuck in your head. How do you think it's gonna end? Nothing that they could do, nothing that they could say, nothing that they could do to take all the pain away. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it don't. Sometimes you win some and sometimes you won't. But we could be everything, everything, anything that we see we could be. We could be everything that we want. We could be everything, everything, anything that we see we endless opinions. To know how you feeling, to know if you're losing or winning, left behind or within it. If you're sinking or swimming, existing or living. Nothing that they could do, nothing that they could say, nothing that they could do to take all the pain away. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it don't. Sometimes you win some and sometimes you won't. But we could be everything, everything, anything that we see we could be. We could be everything that we want. We could be everything, everything, anything that we see we could be. We could be anything that we want. But we could be everything, everything, anything that we see we could be. We could be everything that we want. We could be everything, everything, anything that we see we could be. We could be anything that we
Game number one of the most lopsided matchups we've had all week long. And it's the Valhalla Valkyries who are in the winner's circle at the end of game one. My goodness, this one heavily in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries. It's actually kind of close in the early goings. And by early goings, I mean like the first few levels in duo lane. We're kind of trading back, kills somewhat even. Eventually, it's WorstTurttle who takes this game over. And Susano gets all over the map, Trelly. It starts in duo, ends up in mid. Eventually, NILLL starts getting involved, chaining together some of the kills. Just felt like a more effective game plan and pressure plan from the Valhalla Valkyries.
Yeah, I believe Gore said it best when he said
He says a lot of things best.
He said if the enemy team has 4 times the kills you do, there may be something wrong with the game plan. I may be mincing words a bit, but that's the gist of what he said.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And I think he was correct. And in this case, I think, you know,
something goes wrong if you're down.
Yeah, if you
20 kills.
I would say something did go wrong, and in this case, if you looked at the stat lines, it was WorstTurttle, TheRayShadow, NILLL, Undying, so many kills. And then the duo lane was like, you know, they had most of the deaths of the Valks, which was not many, but still. The duo lane was where the Storm tried to get active. The Valks also decided to get active in that duo lane. Unfortunately, that was just the war zone. But the top 3 players, I mean, NILLL, WorstTurttle, and TheRayShadow, they were just having a field day on this map. 25-7 at 27 minutes. It did not look like they were going to slow down. I did notice their siege was a bit difficult when they stepped up to Phoenix.
Yep.
It was sort of like a, hey, maybe instead of going for the Phoenix, we just jump in and kill because we can't actually get the bridge. You'll notice it here. They just run past the Phoenix at this point. They already had mid down. It was difficult to siege without that range damage, but the team fight, the actual kills, effortless. Undying on the left side of your screen. Rottwen and Warchi, unfortunately, again, the target of most of the aggression from the Storm. But NILLL, WorstTurttle, and TheRayShadow, I don't think they had a care in the world this game.
No, this is I'm scrapping this game plan entirely type game from the Xibalba Storm. 36k damage for both WorstTurttle and NILLL. 41,000 damage. So another top damage performance from a Tiamat. 11-0 and 16. And Rottwen and Warchi, again, of those 8 deaths that found their way to duo lane, 4 of them were in the first 5 minutes of the game, 10 minutes of the game, and then piecemeal kills throughout the rest. Some of it on initiation, some just everyone jumping on the soul, and there's not much to be said about it. You know, I wondered, especially with 2 teams that have unique identities and priority as far as the Season 10 meta goes, this is the type of game where just a better composition can win that hard. If the other team just doesn't have as good a grasp, then things like that can happen. And we'll see if the Xibalba Storm makes some adaptations here, because they've got to. You know, I think if we're being fair to the Storm, you run back game 1 9 more times, you might still lose most of them. I doubt they get that out of hand. You know, that's just a game that completely snowballed. The WorstTurttle is going absolutely crazy. Valks may win 9 out of 10 games with that composition, but that's one of those, you know, once or twice.
That one just got away from him.
Right,
Yeah.
just completely gets out of control.
In a situation like that, I would say you don't weigh too heavy on what went wrong. It wasn't 1 or 2 mistakes that could have fixed that outcome. You kind of just move on, and in this case, it looks like taking away the Tiamat and getting it for Vyye is step number 1 of remedying what happened in game number 1. The Storm are not going to let the draft go the same way it did. In this case, the Valks are fine with just grabbing that Merlin. Like I said, the 1-2 mid right now, you get one or you get the other. No one's banning them, but everyone is picking them. This, again, will be that indication. It looks like the Maui is going to be the call. I mean, Rottwen's had so much success on this pick, the setup that Landfall can bring, as well as just the early fights in duo lane. Seems like the Valks getting exactly what they would want.
Storm, though, quick with their choices here. Tiamat, what do we see, like 75% win rate, something like that, across 16 games so far here this weekend. Amaterasu, Loki will be the next 2 picks for the Xibalba Storm. Lots of assassin bans, as we noted in game 1. Still the story here going into game number 2. Only Yamoja taken off the table, while Set, Alquang, Mercury, Thor, and Kleena all banned away. So now the Loki is locked in. Raises the question, where's it going to go? Well, we've seen MandoWarrior play Loki in the past, 4-1-5, win up against the Callan Wardens earlier on this weekend. So you have to mentally prepare
mix it up.
that could be a Loki over in duo lane if you're the Valhalla Valkyries. But the Valks still not revealing too much. Are going to leave that Warchi pick to the back pocket. I wonder if the Storm actually considering a Camazotz ban here against Warchi.
I doubt it.
I mean, yeah, can you? Right? I mean, I don't think it's done.
It's not even because like
You gotta ban WorstTurttle here specifically.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like the Storm have been focusing out WorstTurttle more often than not, and Camazotz did 16k damage last game. Was killed. I mean,
my only argument would be forcing Warchi onto like even something further down in the God pool. But
I
to your point,
there's definitely some value in that.
Right.
It's just the fact that there was a 9-0, 11-0.
right? It's gotta be a Susano
Yeah.
ban.
If you're trying to focus out the problem.
Yes.
The problem of the
We're
Valks,
both right. We're nuts.
They did it. Well, I give all credit to you because I wouldn't have banned the Cama.
We're both right. Well, no, but here's the thing. I'm bad at Smite, you know. I'm like middle of the road player mentality, so I don't know if I deserve credit. But there's some value maybe in the Camazotz ban. But you are also right. We ban out WorstTurttle. That's the best type of right, where both of us correct in one way or another. So Camazotz, that's gone from Warchi. WorstTurtle's not going to get the Susano. And this is where I maybe thought there could be some value in taking the Camazotz away, because if this ends up going to Warchi, the last time we saw Naja and Duo went 0-5 against the Tanuki earlier on in the weekend.
You're
And
right.
So you take away the Camazotz, you're not going to play Agni again. You take away the set. What else is Warchi going to play? Well, if it's Naja, our only history on it is 0-5 earlier in the weekend.
I mean, yeah, you're certainly not going Agni into the Loki. I do not think this doesn't scream to me a WorstTurttle pick, just because it seems like he likes to take the game in his hands. You can with Naja, it's certainly possible, but it relies a lot on consistently getting key targets with that ultimate, whereas there's other assassins that can do what Naja does a little bit safer and a little bit more consistently. So I'm thinking Warchi may take that Naja over to the duo lane, which, because his Camazotz has taken away that level of safety, I would like Mando to just take that Loki then and try and take that 1v1 whenever possible. I mean, it's one of those things where you get 2 items online, and then you should be able to find solo kills if you're warding properly and you know where the enemy jungle's at, and you just kind of walk in and try and poke with your decoy. So the double assassin call for the Storm comes through, and the Nemesis locked in. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, either one of those could be ADC, but I think I would prefer the Naja just because we already saw Warchi play it once, I guess.
And after seeing Warchi play it once, you still prefer it. That's interesting.
Well, because
went 0-5.
I think the unknown is even
I
worse to me. You know,
I know.
like I haven't seen him play Nemesis.
That was
ADC.
more kidding Warchi than anything else. You know, I'd make the same argument that we did about Game 1 towards the 0-5 Naja game. We might not win 9 times out of 10, but the odds of it going that sideways consistently pretty low. It's interesting. It's interesting. We've got 4 bans on one side centered around assassins. We've got 4 bans on the other side centered around the same. A couple of picks per team. Let's talk about snowball potential. If the Valkyries get off to a similar start, say it's WorstTurttle on Nemesis jungle, is there similar potential across this draft to make what happened in Game 1 happen again?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Nem still does have that hard carry potential. It's just, you know, neither one of them clear the wave very well. They're both good at clearing jungle camps. That's what Naja and Nemesis are meant for. So just sitting in lane, again, I don't have a preference at this point. It's just the idea of which one's going to be safer up against a Loki, and in this case, I think Nem would be a bit safer. So if you're trying to 1v1 up against a Loki, or at the very least just survive that lane until later on when you can get to those tankier targets and actually help your team out in team fights, then yeah, sure, maybe Warchi on the Nem ADC. But it seems like team fight wise, the Storm have actually changed up a lot of what they want to do. It's all dive, right? You've got Dazzling Offensive, just going in consistently. You're dropping the Dharmic Pillars, trying to force out escapes, and then Loki and Ravana to the backline. So the Storm are not trying to sit back and just farm for late game. They want to take the fight to these objectives early on, and they don't want to let these assassins get online.
Which, I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah.
After the way the Game 1 went, you need to regain some control of exactly how things are going here in Game number 2. The mid lane battle, especially at Tiamat versus Merlin, which is something we've seen pretty consistently over the last few days. I imagine we'll see it into the weekend as well, both above 50% win rate pretty handily.
Mm-hmm.
All this talk about double assassin, which assassin gets off to a better start, duo lane, you know, Loki, Ravana, Nem, Naja, who's going where. By the end of the game, we could just, it likely is just going to end up being Tiamat and Merlin trying to edge one another out for top damage in the game. We'll see. It is edge of defeat for the Xibalba Storm. You got to win 2 straight to stay alive in the tournament. We'll see if they get it done in Game 2.
And it's the double assassin once again for the Valkyries, but this time the Storm will join them in also running 2 assassins. MandoWarrior back on the Loki. Warchi will be taking the Naja once more to see if he can have a better performance on it this time up against the Xibalba Storm. It's J-Mac and Goremizer alongside Doug to bring the action for game number 2. The Valks 1 game away from moving on to the lower bracket and awaiting their opponent from some of our sets a little bit later on today. Meanwhile, the Xibalba Storm, they've got to find a full run back, similar to what they needed on day number 1 of the event in order to find a victory. Got to win game 2 and game 3 if they want to keep their chances alive here in this event.
Yeah, I think that they've got themselves into a better position. It's actually funny because when we were watching picks and bans for game 1, and we walked by and you go, huh, Mando's actually playing something ranged. And then they lose that game. So I don't think it's any coincidence that they go back, pick up an assassin. Very similar kind of composition actually here for the Storm as to what the Valkyries were playing last game around. I think that they've got ranged engage from Dingodile. You've got good engage from MaIachi as well as from Mando and from Valo. The big thing for me is just going to be how they adjust a lot of those team fights. I think that was a big problem that we saw in game number 1. And admittedly, you've got different characters now, and so that's going to change up the pace. On the other side, I'm really interested in what the Valkyries have here. Because I think the Achilles, first off, was phenomenal. I think TheRayShadow is going to look good, and I think Rottwen's going to look good. They're on very standard gods, things that we've been seeing this weekend that are going to do well. And, of course, Rottwen is... I've said this, and I think I can almost unashamedly, at least top 2, if not maybe number 1, but like one of my favorite supports out of Europe to have watched, period. Last year, it was pretty much him and Trickstank almost always. If I got to watch a game that had them in it, we knew it was going to be fantastic. And then, of course, he subbed for Trickstank at the Summer Masters last year. So we know Rottwen's going to be able to make this Maui look really good. The things that have me a little off guard is we haven't really gotten to see Nemesis in this meta, and so I'm just interested in what WorstTurtle's going to be able to do with this pick. I think it's something that we've seen carry. I used to have it in my mind that for some reason Nemesis couldn't, but I've been proven wrong time and time again on that one and kind of reshaped my vision on it. I think WorstTurtle should look good on this pick. It's just going to be a question of whether or not it's as explosive as some of the other performances that we've gotten to see. I'm also really interested in Warchi, because I don't know that Naja as a carry is where my mind would go immediately. Naja's really good for setup and stuff like that. And we have seen Naja carry before, though. And so very much in that same breath of me feeling uncertain about it, I think that if anyone's going to make this work, especially after what we've seen so far from the Valkyries since they got knocked down, it's going to be Warchi. I think this is going to be the time to make it happen. Honestly, if it's not Warchi, then his team's going to drag him kicking and screaming there anyway. I think looking at the slash lines from last game is very important for those notes, which is that the Valkyries duo lane was like 4-12, 4-13. Like their slash lines individually were not that great. It's just they were the only ones that were dying, right? And I think that realistically, you could kind of fill a similar role here. You don't want to plan on dying a lot, but like if Warchi goes in, gets a massive stun, huge ring toss to slow people down, and maybe a big ult for someone to follow up on, if he dies after that, I don't know that you care as much if TheRayShadow and WorstTurttle are going to get 2 to 3 kills after it.
Oh, Valo wrapping around the top side of the jungle. Rottwen and Warchi are unaware of this. Immediately into the wave, Dingodile goes in aggressive. The root hits Rottwen, though, and a pullback onto Valo. Quick beads by Warchi to try and get out. And the stun from Rottwen off his leap will actually connect with Mando. In the 3v2, the Valhalla Valkyries, well, let's say that they won that fight, but the fact they lived through it is only costing them a single primary relic. Well, actually, they did end up losing meditation as well. Probably the bigger, more telling point of this battle.
Yeah, I think you really do get to see maybe a change of pace. I want to see the Storm. I don't even know if I can say be more active. They got the first 3 Furies last game. They played that part incredibly well. And so I guess it's going to be take some of these fights and turn them into something that feels more than just a skirmish for the sake of a skirmish, right? Not just getting these Furies, going for maybe some invades. Leon said it in his interview where he just said it's still Smite, right? Sometimes you can just get in there, get aggressive, and try to control things where they are. So I want to see him play more. Speaking of aggressive, look at WorstTurttle.
WorstTurttle stole the right side speed, will now steal the left side one away from Valo. And it's just looping around the back. And
you got 2 speed buffs now and he took them away.
Got 2, lost them both. But also that little bit right there, we didn't see that enough from a lot of Mauis. I mean, you have a god who can throw essentially a free, decently ranged teleport to any one of your allies. I love what Rottwen did there of actually walking up, recognizing maybe WorstTurtle's not in the most danger, but we want to guarantee him to get out, and throws down that puddle into the mystical Alua and able to bring his ally back to safety.
That's one of the, at least like in the time, first off, that we spent watching it, but like you said, it's like maybe the most underutilized aspect of that. Granted, that ability gives a lot of good stuff on it, even after some of the nerfs that it's received. So if that's the least utilized part of it, it's just because everything else in it is so good, so clean. But I like seeing that, especially in a moment like that. I mean, with the way the walls are shaped specifically around that part of the jungle, that's not a good spot to be caught. Yeah, you're Nemesis. Yeah, you're kind of slippery. That's not a good spot to be caught out by anybody. So, you know, get a good disengage. Make sure you stay alive. You make Valo probably double angry because now there's 2 speed buffs, 2x mad about losing your own speed buff. And it really does set them up. And maybe not crazily. I mean, we're talking like a few hundred gold at max, but small leads lead to big things. And I think that's what I want to see. Maybe more pressure right now from WorstTurtle wherever it ends up, but turn that into an objective and you've got a win in my mind.
MaIachi was under a lot of pressure in game number 1 from WorstTurtle and NILLL. Will once again be under fire, but some backup this time as Valo and Vyye have rotated over to help try and secure this blue buff. Vyye will go into the quadrupedal stance. NILLL still holding on to the damage from the dash. Can this blue be saved? No, it will not. Now it's a dive in on top of Vyye. Will quickly walk himself out. The X2 body blocked by Valo, and now the fight is turned to 2v3, but every single one of these is falling and falling worse as NILLL dives way to the depths near the tier 2 tower to pick up 1 kill. Dingodile rotates over, but it's too little too late as the Valkyries have struck first blood.
There's a moment in that fight where NILLL decided they were getting first blood and they were not going to drop it. And it's so well played. Again, a blink, beautifully done. But that fight was a win to begin with. It starts off with, well, we got the teleport, and then we forced MaIachi TKO. You're getting experience off of that. Then you get the blue buff. All right, so you're adding on to your win. That's 2 in a row. And then immediately you're able to start pressuring out more. Plus you get first blood, TKO Vyye on top of it. Now you get a little TKO here on Mando. I think this is just a really good set of plays from the Valkyries. Across the map, nothing really fancy happened over here. It was just some good old-fashioned Najah. And unfortunately, Mando, I don't think bit off more than he can chew, but definitely struggling over here in the left lane.
I have a feeling if Warchi had maybe a blink there, that was definitely going to be an attempt for a kill. But Warchi's in danger now. His Valo has immuned the stun from Rottwen, but ult's still available for Warchi, so he'll use that to escape from the clutches of the enemy jungle. Rottwen and Warchi still sticking by the ring toss there, and that can do quite a bit of damage bouncing between those targets, but Val is still able to confirm the shield buff for himself and will alleviate a little bit of pressure in the dual lane for Mando, but Mando has not been having the best of time so far on the Loki here in the early game.
The pace of this game, and this is I'm looking like much more grand scheme. First off, last time around we were at like 10 kills already, which is wild to think about, that it's been, pumped the brakes that hard. Admittedly though, that's because the Storm have to play this one carefully, right? You have to remember this is their elimination match, right? If they lose here, and especially if it's just from like some silly mistakes 5 minutes into the game, that's the end of the road. They don't get their shot anymore. They don't get their chance to continue. But the thing that I'm really curious about is it feels like one that kill count when the fights start up is going to skyrocket, but towers are not going to be touched virtually at all until later on. I mean, you're looking at the bastions across the board, you can see some are really weak, but not quite gone just yet. So there's opening for conversations there. But I think that the towers themselves are going to survive a little longer than maybe expected. But I expect there to be... I mean, it's weird to say this, ideally more bloodbaths, but not necessarily like trading 3 for 4 or anything like that. I think that the Valkyries are going to be able to control the map, and the Storm are going to have to answer.
Valo quickly ults out. No ults expended by the Valkyries this time around. But it's a fight over potentially red buff. Rottwen will eat a lot of poke from Vyye and Dingodile. That Dharmic Pillar starting to do a lot. Consume is there for Vyye to guarantee the red buff for himself. WorstTurttle still lurking around the jungle. And this kind of feels like it goes back again to a little bit of what Elion was talking about in his post-game interview. He said, this is still Smite. You can still go for these blue buffs, but who needs a blue when you can get a kill on Warchi? But Warchi's taking Valo up into the sky. He needs some good ring toss bounce to turn this 2v1 into now a 1v1. And with backup of TheRayShadow, MandoWarrior unable to get the kill on Warchi, who turns a bad situation into gold.
If Warchi dies there, but still gets that kill, I don't think I care that much, right? In the sense that you made a great play if you're Warchi. The fact that he gets out turns that great play into something even more ephemeral. Like, it is way better than what it could have been. You've got an 0-2 and 0-2 level down Ravana on the other side. I mean, Valo is turning into a non-factor as of right now. Missed out on 2 speed buffs earlier because of a good invade from WorstTurttle. I mean, this is just really well played by the Valkyries, again, across the board and across the map. And the way that they've been playing this has been nothing short of aggression. You're starting to get leads, not just in the jungle, but you've got it in solo, you've got it in mid. And so it's only 2 kills. That's nothing crazy. But everything else they've picked up on the map has really gotten to shovel experience and some gold into their pockets. And that's not talking about a Gold Fury yet. That's not talking about a Pyromancer, since it's not even spawned in on the map just yet. It is just good old natural neutral farm and invades. And so far, if they keep up a pace like this, especially turning around kills like that in a 2v1 for Warchi, I mean, you are looking at a very, very different game.
Not a fun one for MaIachi once again, as NILLL continues to push him to the tier 1 tower. Constant blue invades have been the name of the game for the Valkyries in game number 2, and we see yet another one on the right side. It's 2v1 over towards the shield buff for Warchi. He won the 2v1 last time around. This time, not even going to be an actual fight from Dingodile and MandoWarrior. Warchi will be able to walk away as yet another blue buff gets stolen on the right side. MandoWarrior goes in with the double ult for Dingodile, but Warchi holding on to his Windfire wheel is able to get himself out of dodge. And now with Rottwen rotating over, Hook just splits the uprights between Valo and Vyye.
I will say for Warchi, ult for 2 ults, immediately worthwhile. You keep your beads. I think that that trade it's a small win, but again, these small wins have really added up for the Valkyries. Same thing. I mean, MaIachi just wants a blue buff, but unable to get it. Experience that's going to make a pretty big gap. And you're already starting to see NILLL making some massive rotations over. And MaIachi can't even think about it right now just because he doesn't have the items, doesn't have the farm to get to this point. So the Valkyries in a spot, if they could have picked up a kill there, we're maybe talking about the Fury and having a conversation about how they absolutely demolished it. Instead, what we're looking at is just some good old-fashioned aggression, maybe an overstay.
Definitely need to get a kill on Rottwen. He has barely any mana until that med goes through. Gets the ultimate, but it's too little and too late for the Maui. Valkyries stick around maybe a little bit longer than they needed to. But again, starting that fight with no mana to his name for Rottwen, had to pop the meditation to get anything back before that fight started. Might be a bit of an overstep for the Valks.
Yeah, I think that was one that the aggression was great. When NILLL left, probably everybody else should have left. You back off a little bit. I do still admire it because up to this point, you know, at least if I'm in their shoes, they hadn't been punished for plays like that. And so it's nice to finally see one go the way of the Storm, but I think for the Valkyries, that's just kind of the heat check, right? Where you're saying, okay, how much can we actually get away with? And the answer is not everything. So they're going to have to slow down a little bit. You lose Rottwen, and I said this last time, like Rottwen, look, fantastic player. But if your support's the one that's going down, everybody else gets out alive, and not only that, still has a lead, you're feeling pretty okay about the way the trade goes. Nothing too crazy. It's a green buff plus a kill on a support that I think actually at the time might have been a level behind. And so if Rottwen gets his ult back up, they want to stay a little more aggressive, I think they're going to have plenty of opportunities to continue making plays that might even be more beneficial around the green buff. Really what you're looking for right now is if you can get a kill on the left side of the map on any 3-4 players, right? If you want to throw Valo into that list, that's going to open up a Fury conversation for the Valkyries, especially if NILLL's able to rotate. With teleport being down, might be a little bit more of a slow-paced game from the Valkyries. Go back to the invades as opposed to something big.
WorstTurttle again to the blue buff. Steals it away from MaIachi, who cannot catch a break on the right side of him. There's been assists going his way to try and bail him out, but every single time it's been thwarted by the massive combo of the Valkyries. A landfall immuned out by Vyye. Not going to be able to get a pull this time around. The Valkyries now down a team fight ultimate. Let's see if they can find any pick onto somebody. Dingodile does get grabbed and immediately silences out, but now he's in the middle of 3. Has the dash, but it does not get him far enough as WorstTurttle collapses in with the rest of the squad. Another invade, this time on the red buff. Will not be successful for the Valks, but they still got their one pick to put Dingo down.
It's not this crazy pop-off 10-0 right now play, but I love this Nemesis so much. I mean, just the way WorstTurtle's been playing it, not only aggressive in the jungle, but recognizing that you're slippery, you've got survivability, you've got safety because you got a Maui around you, but also using it so well. I mean, Dingodile, most supports in a circumstance like that, they're at least walking away, and maybe you kill them, but you have to invest so much more. You just melt people with the Nemesis.
Warchi fighting against MandoWarrior, who pops his Aegis a bit early in that fight. Not sure what he was expecting to come from there, but Warchi doesn't have his ult, doesn't have does have beads, but nothing more than that. Beads will not save you from the damage of these two assassins. So Warchi will fall down for 30 seconds, and some return fire now from the Xibalba Storm. But again, Xibalba Storm have just been getting only kills on the duo end of the Valkyries team. There's still yet to be a kill on the 3 that were hard carrying the last game.
I'm wondering, well, we saw how much of a problem that was. I wonder if it'll continue. Specifically, if NILLL can have that same kind of performance, WorstTurttle, TheRayShadow. A kill onto Warchi last time around. I mean, we were looking at a small lead for Mando for a little while. That got overcome pretty quickly by the Valkyries. And that's kind of what I'm worried about happening right now, is the fact that, yes, you've got a small lead there. It's also the only place you have a lead, as you had mentioned. The deaths that are being racked up for the Valkyries are only in specific spots, and it's only on duo. Has not been able to help control it. They get a Pyromancer, for Warchi's life, so feels like it's worthwhile, especially since Rottwen gets to carry around a Runic Bomb. Nobody's picked up a Gold Fury. I mean, it's not a crazy, out-of-control, hey, you're already 3,000-4,000 behind, but it is the pace of a game for the Valkyries to continue choosing fights. And unless you're able to continue getting small picks like that, especially while the beads are down for Warchi, I don't know if you're looking too much towards the Storm. I think you're waiting for a 5-on-5, maybe a big 4v4 play around the the Gold Fury here could be a big stepping stone forward for you. But J-Mac, it's all about whether or not they feel confident in it. And, you know, as much as I like Ganesh just in general, like Maui a lot more, and it feels like Rottwen has the engage just on lock.
Fury pulled. Vision there for the Xibalba Storm. They know this is happening. It's a collapse on the Warchi. He will take one up to the sky while the Fury is still being done by the rest of the team. Lands down to the Dharmic Pillars. Warchi is still living through all of this. The defense has paid off just enough for him to delay this fight, but there needs to be more attention towards Valo. There needs some help towards TheRayShadow, and that's the collapse that the Xibalba Storm need. A double kill for Vyye, nearly a triple kill as he throws one shot for the Primordial Onslaught, and that will be a triple for the mid, and maybe now a Fury, but WorstTurtle's looking for some of his own, gets a turnaround kill onto Valo, but now WorstTurtle is stuck around for a little too long. Heals up quite a bit of damage thrown his way, but there's still too much of it coming back.
I need to see him go for a Fury here. I mean, Mando's a little low. You should still have the damage and at least the tankiness to be able to pick it up. Take your kills, turn them into something massive. NILLL's hanging around. Might be able to get something done here. I don't know. This is a very awkward engagement for you. You're tanky enough that you can probably get in, get out.
That's respect.
But it is also a moment where if you go in, they might just damage dump into you instead. I'm surprised. NILLLL alone was enough to ward off that Fury. It should have been a very easy pickup for him. Shows, I mean, like you said, respect, I think, going towards the Valkyries. That fight starts out in a fun way. You know, you get to see Warchi go for what was almost a repeat. He almost kills off Valo. But the team replies a lot faster this time around, right? It doesn't stay a 2v2 or a 2v1 for long. Suddenly there's 3 people looking down towards Warchi, getting rid of the Naja. And once that was burned off, everybody else was in an awkward spot. I mean, TheRayShadow was literally surrounded by 4 people because they played aggressively as opposed to sitting a little further back and trying to get their abilities at range. And so it was just one of those moments of, oh, well, we just killed the one squishy. Let's kill the other one. There's not much else to stop us. And unfortunately, after that, you know, WorstTurttle goes in, tries to get a kill, make things feel a little more worthwhile. I'm kind of surprised. I thought that the team was just going to stick to the Fury and, you know, say, sorry, Valo, you're dead. Can't do much about it. But the fact that they responded, killed off WorstTurttle, you got to start doing some mental math. Is it worth killing WorstTurttle, making him feel a little worse, or worse knowing that you didn't get the Gold Fury on top of it? Probably some weird balancing out, but when I look down, I see some of the levels have equalized, maybe now even more in favor if you're looking at MandoWarrior. And so the Xibalba Storm can definitely come out of that fight and feel pretty confident about their abilities.
The major leads that the Valkyries did have earlier between jungle and solo, even a little bit for TheRayShadow, are now dwindled away. A dive onto Warchi once more. A quick ult gets him away from Valo. But it's just been a massive grouping by the Xibalba Storm once more now towards this objective. Everybody on the left side of the map. Rottwen is there, can slow this one down with a well-placed landfall, but the
What?
WorstTurtle walks in slowly, steals that one away. Landfall will be good for Rottwen. WorstTurtle lives too. Rottwen and WorstTurtle not only steal the Fury, but both of them appealed for each other to get out, and there's no loss for the Valkyries in this.
Let's have a conversation about zone. And let's talk about how there was none on that Fury. I mean, look, you had the burn.
He creeped in
the Storm,
there.
we're talking about it. But, yeah, that is a good play. I have to give credit. It's partially on the Storm. Maybe you should go for a little more of a zone. Maybe you should start pushing back once you see that Nemesis walking forward. But realistically, that's just a good play by WorstTurtle, right? Being able to close the distance, get in there, well-timed with the slice and dice. It's one of those plays that most of the time, probably like 80% of the time, you're not walking away with the Fury. But managed to get it in what was a weighted coin flip and makes it work out for the team. And so I'm really just, again, the way that he's able to walk up, like, it was just so simple, right, in all essence. And they got a pyro prior to that, so it feels really good for them. And I mean, you have to look at this, right? All cooldowns up. You've got your dash in, dash out, shield ready. Nobody from the Storm even looking for the approaching Valkyries. And to walk out of that afterwards just because you have all your cooldowns left, right? Nobody forced anything from you. And so it was a very easy path for WorstTurtle to just go in, get the job done.
Felt like it's just another day in the office for WorstTurtle. He just walks in, punches his ticket, says, all right, cool, my job is done. And then luckily for him, he's got Rottwen to bail him out with that landfall, actually cut off the path so WorstTurtle could have an escape out of there. Speaking of Rottwen,
damn,
able to walk up. keep 2 people away. And all the while, TheRayShadow took the tier 1 tower while that Fury was being done. Wasn't even a part of any of that action. So not only do they get the Gold Fury benefit of all that extra gold, but tier 1 on top of that. Now we're looking at a 3,100 gold lead for the Valhalla Valkyries.
You know, normally I'm not, I don't want to say like a naysayer here. I would say, okay, if you're the Storm, you can pump the brakes, no big neutral objectives. Like, it's just Fire Giant. 22 minutes in, definitely something you can start looking at if you're either squad. But they could probably be patient around it as well. Here's the downside, though. There were 2 runic bombs that were available. One of them actually got used. And so a little bit, yeah, used by WorstTurttle of all things. So I don't know what he used it on.
Gotta clear that camp, man.
But it did not get used on a tower. I was thinking about how ridiculous it would have been for this entire team to walk forward. I mean, if you're walking forward with 2 of those, you're talking about a tier 2 that's just gone at that point, right? A lot of good damage that could be done. And so with another Pyromancer coming up, I think that's going to have a little bit of weight to it. Right before a Fire Giant could really open up mid, maybe a Phoenix. Then you get the FG, and suddenly you're having a win condition very easily open to you.
Well, Fire Giant, at least de-warded by WorstTurttle, taking what vision that Dingodile had placed in the pit there. Pyro once again pulled by the Valkyries, trying to stack themselves maybe another runic bomb to go alongside with the one in Rottwen's inventory. NILLL will eat a little bit of poke in the mid lane, but it'll sustain some of that backup right away. Vyye seems to be maybe the main answer to damage towards this Achilles. Pyromancer picked up once more, this time by the Xibalba Storm. Dingodile in the front line with MaIachi. There are 3 in a tiny, tiny corridor. Somebody's got to drop, but it's not going to be anybody. Rottwen able to get over the wall for now. MaIachi goes in deep, does not have the ultimate any longer. A knock on to NILLL will force the execute out in that regard. And the funneling for the Xibalba Storm up against the Valkyries into one tiny spot has paid up big for them, because now it's the Xibalba Storm who can grab the Pyromancer.
I was watching WorstTurttle in the corner, man. He's in mid. I'm just wondering, is it worthwhile for you? I like the play to not go for it. You get 2 runic bombs on the board, 1 for each team. I have to agree with you, though. The funnel the Storm have created, their 5-on-5s, as of late, at least in this game, have been very solid in terms of getting a lot of damage out there. Yeah, it hasn't necessarily translated to a million billion kills, but it has really given them those opportunities to kind of extort the Valkyries on the map, right? Bully them out, pick up the Pyromancer. Bully them out next time, maybe you get a Fire Giant. Bully them out now, maybe you get a Pyro, a Primal. So definitely a lot of wiggle room for them, and they've been playing it well. And I think it's just that simple shift of having a few people that are diving. Dingodile having the ultimate. I mean, Dharmic Pillar is one of my favorite support ultimates, period. And even though it wasn't doing well earlier, and even though I still personally prefer what the Maui is going to be bringing to the table, I think that now you've hit this level 15, your Ganesh can actually exist and get stuff done.
Well, Mando has used his only escape, but WorstTurttle dashed into the wall. Doesn't matter, he has just enough cooldown to get that slice and dice back up. And now it's a 5 versus 4 for the Valkyries. Landfall will pull Dingodile back out of position. Vyye is up against NILLL, but now has to back up from Valo. This Achilles that felt like it was so difficult to take down is looking a little bit more vulnerable in these team fights. And with MaIachi showing up, the Xibalba Storm are able to repel the Valkyries and leave him at only a single kill so far.
You know, we had mentioned big differences, and maybe this is a thought that needs to be held on to. Primal Fury being danced about with. I'm surprised Warchi went in with the stun, but they've got a 4v2 in the burn. Oh my god!
Dingodile gets caught out of the Ohm and can't get to a dash quick enough with the CC chain, but keep your eyes on Valo. Still sticking around the backside. It's now all 5 back for the Valkyries, but who cares about the Fury? Maybe it's just the fight instead. Vyye, no more Aegis available to the Tiamat. Beads are down, but does have to jump over the wall. The fire on MaIachi. The damage in the backline on the Valo. It's not enough from Warchi. He needs some extra help from WorstTurttle. And the rest of the squad, and MaIachi is left alone. On the way is MandoWarrior, but they cannot save this Tiamat. Able to find a pick onto WorstTurttle, but that was 4, I guess technically 5, since Mando died earlier on, for just the lone kill on the WorstTurtle. Can Mando make the hero play around the Primal Fury? Will throw out the decoy, but that is just not enough damage. That will be a Fury plus 5 total going to the Valks.
I don't even know where to begin with that one. I guess it starts with WorstTurttle. It kind of ends with WorstTurttle as well, right? Good kill immediately onto Mando. Creates a 4v5 scenario for the team. Instantaneously, you've made your worth as a jungler jump up, right? Because you are doing so much for your team. Then you get good engage. Rottwen, bringing people in. Warchi with the sash. And Warchi's exactly in that kind of position I was thinking earlier. 3 and 2, you're getting some kills, you're dying some. You're not going to be the one that's like the heavy hard carry. You're the one who's throwing the ring toss, getting some slows. You're the one that's getting the sash and letting, TheRayShadow come in. Burn the hell out of anybody that stands in their way. I mean, the damage output that this Merlin had alongside with what you're getting brought in by NILLL and WorstTurttle, I think was incredible for them during that fight. Gets everybody low, makes them feel awkward. And then the Storm do something similar to what they were doing in Game 1, J-Mac, which is just a lot of, well, I'll go in this time. And, like, starting a fight with one guy, and that one guy's not the guy who should be starting a fight. Or, you had mentioned it, you get a little bit of a loop around, which feels like it could be something big. But really, it's just you've got one guy over there and 2 guys alone. And so it gave the Valkyries a lot of opportunity to just walk forward and fight you. And just create an opportunity where you're at a numbers disadvantage. The guy who was lurking around isn't close enough to get something done. And they have to be very careful about it. I mean, we're seeing a lot of disengaged used right now around the FG pit, and it's because just one of them is enough for a fire giant for the Valkyrie, so they have to be very careful if they're going to try to play aggressively here for the Storm, because sometimes all it takes is one slip-up, one mistake, and they're gone.
MaIachi, half HP after the pull from Rottwen and the fire combo from TheRayShadow. Puts him down low. He'll be able to resustain with his stance switches. But now Warchi going in aggressive. The Dingodile will take him up into the sky, but he's going to need some help on landing, and he's got plenty of it between the Merlin and the rest of the squad. TheRayShadow takes down the elephant. That is a 45-second respawn time for the support of the Xibalba Storm. But look at the collapse in, the path cut off on one front. But now, with no HP for Vyye, he is out of the fight. A dive over the wall by Rottwen. Mando and Valo are also going to be TKO'd from the fight. It's just MaIachi, the only one left standing to try and stop the fire right away. But he's being zoned away by NILLL, by Rottwen. The rest of this Valk squad now funneling back to the fire.
The majority of the initial engage on that fight is very straightforward. Warchi goes in, brings an elephant to the sky, comes back down, the elephant's dead. It is as simple as it gets. Dingodile had nothing to work with there. The rest of that fight is a little more complex, but also simple in essence, and that is WorstTurttle goes around the right-hand side. The rest of the team is pushing up as a 4 towards the left side of this portion of the jungle. WorstTurttle hits Vyye with his ult and says, hey, let's kill Tiamat. And then that's pretty much the call from that point forward, right? The team surges forward. They have a really good wraparound to cut off any sort of disengage path from the Storm. And since Vyye is taking more damage at that point, it's pretty easy to just get the extra kill onto the mid laner and kill off anybody maybe who is surrounding and trying to open up the opportunities to keep their mid laner safe, try and peel for them. The other thing I want to highlight in that, though, is not just how this fight happens, but it's really, and I've seen it 2 or 3 times now from WorstTurttle, that one stood out the most, it has to be mentioned. His capability in movement and just small jukes. Nothing has been insane, but he recognizes, oh, Vye's going to throw out X now, I'm going to take 2 steps back. Takes those 2 steps and immediately then dashes forward. And it's happened a few times where he's dodged out getting rooted. He's dodged out getting knocked up. He's dodged out a lot of damage that otherwise would have been thrown his way or stopped this Nemesis from being very impactful. And it's just little small movements, on the keyboard, a couple of S taps instead of W taps that are really making a huge difference for his health bar and his presence in the game. So WorstTurttle, outside of just the good mechanical ability usage, has had really good mechanical movement usage. And unfortunately for the Storm, if this guy's dodging all your CC, you got to figure out another way to control it.
I think there needs to be a way to maybe try and corral NILLL as well if you're the Xibalba Storm, because 2 games so far undying in both of them. Only 1-0-5 this time, and topping the damage charts for his team. I mean, this Achilles has been so oppressive up against the Xibalba Storm that they've just not found an answer to him in 2 games. I mean, we talk about picks and bans up against the Valkyries. We're looking at the set, the Ao Kwang. As this weekend goes on, this Achilles may be something that a couple teams should look at as well. Vyye gets some help, but he is dead before his relics can come back up. Dingodile, he's gone as well. That's a double kill for TheRayShadow. And 50 seconds on respawn. The Valkyries can just take this Phoenix if they want. They might even be able to just run up into the Titan room, but they don't have minions, so this is a slow burn of the bird. And instead, the Valkyries will now turn their sights towards the mid lane. Left Phoenix gone. MaIachi steps up, has to back out right away.
Yeah, minion wave with him here, so it should be a little easier, not just to burn this Phoenix. Oh my god, talk about easier. Oh man, they get rid of that one, no problem. I think really what I was wondering, and much like you, I mean, you had 40 seconds without Vyye, without Dingodile. Feels like you probably could have kicked it down. I don't mind this play though, because JMac, you know, we mentioned it from the other side. If you're the Storm right now, you are on the cusp, I mean on the brink of having your tournament life ended right here by the Valkyries, escorting someone to Valhalla appropriately, right, for the mascot. But if you're the Valkyries, you don't want to over-risk anything, right? I mean, you lose one big fight right there, suddenly you're talking about the Storm, not maybe being back in it, but at least being able to put up more of a fight. Now, it's maybe a little slower, but it's a chokeout kind of play. You got fire minions in left, fire minions in mid. You still have tier 1s in both of those lanes. Like, you are not stressing about your Titan at all. Meanwhile, if you're the Storm, everyone's distracted. You're going to get to reset here about 20 seconds out. You'll pick up another fire giant. This is going to be a very simple play for the Valkyries from here on out. Burn this enhanced FG, get a couple picks, win the game. Nothing really big about that. You've got the engage, whether it's WorstTurttle or Rottwen or Warchi, or hell, NILLL. It's someone on your team's going to start a fight. It all depends on positioning of the Storm and really a lot of their fight back. I think that they are going to have to figure out where it is, and it might have to be a Hail Mary play up here in the FG pit.
MaIachi dives in. NILLL will zone the other 4 from the fight, but MaIachi's doing a lot in the background. Massive landfall by Rottwen to start this fight, but NILLL is finally gone. That's the one that the Xibalba Storm have got to take out in this fight, but Valo gets turned on. WorstTurttle is taking down them piece by piece. There are 3 gone from the Storm off an amazing initiation from the Valhalla Valkyries. Vyye will not be able to live through, but he at least takes down one with him.
Man, you said it. There's not much to break down. He hit a huge ult. Rottwen pulls them all. He gets the damage necessary. Oh, and they get to walk forward. Look, that's just so good. And immediately, I was a little curious. I didn't see a lot from TheRayShadow, but the damage ended up being over there. I have to give another shout out because, yes, there was a huge, huge landfall play. But I think another one that ends up happening there is WorstTurttle, just being WorstTurttle. Gets a double kill off on the side, plays the Nemesis incredibly well, opens up an opportunity for the team to continue getting aggressive. Even though you make some trades that are maybe unfavorable, NILLL takes a lot of damage at the beginning without a lot of backup. It still slowly crawls him to the right place. WorstTurttle turns that engagement from something that feels like it could go in favor of the Storm to another just deafening grip from the Valkyrie saying, like, no, this is done, this is ours, and we are not going to let it fall. Gets a little rough for him, right? Not the cleanest fight that they'd had all game. But they got the win, and sometimes that's all that matters.
In this situation, they needed WorstTurttle step up there because NILLL was gone. That was the one that you need to focus out in these fights. The one who went undying all the way up until that moment of the game throughout 2 entire games. As soon as NILLL goes down, I was thinking, man, this could be the turnaround the Storm need, even after that massive landfall. But as you say, WorstTurttle picks it up, finds 2 separate 1v1s during that fight. Able to turn this one back around. And it's the Valhalla Valkyries moving on in their tournament. Unfortunate for the Xibalba Storm. They didn't see her for them. That's it for me and Gro on the cast. We'll throw it to the desk to break it down.
And with another 2-0, our second team heads home today. Luckily, if you hate sadness, no more teams being eliminated today. That was it. We got the eliminations out of the way. Teams going to the losers bracket, but no more teams going home today. Unfortunately, this is the end for the Xibalba Storm. And the Valhalla Valkyries, Trelly, they've now figured something out.
Yeah.
They've got a little momentum building up on their losers bracket run. Admittedly, I was ribbing Warchi a bit when we saw the Naja get locked in a second time. I was like, the first time we saw it was 0-5. How many times in a row is that going to happen? Luckily, only once. Actually, a decent game out of it. I think WorstTurttle puts together a really nice performance. Goatwin steps up again. 4-man landfall towards the end of that game. 4-man taunt earlier on in this tournament. I think it's a good place to start the replays, though, and we'll get a mix of all the Valhalla Valkyries players. But NILLL also really stepped up in the last few games we've seen this Valkyries team play.
No doubt. And I think that last play that we just saw was close to being bad, as J-Mac highlighted. It was almost that moment when you Sobek pluck someone into the back line, then you realize your carry's 1 HP and they just die.
You plucked the wrong person.
Right, you pulled 4 people into your 1 HP Achilles, but in this case, WorstTurttle said, yeah, it takes 4 people to kill our Achilles. I'm going to destroy your backline in the process. This Nemesis was going unchecked in these team fights later on. I think the entirety of the Valks, I'm not going to say a new brand of this team because it was really just their first set. I mean, their first set was the only one that we've seen them on the down and out, and ever since then, they have really came through in a big way. And it just seems like WorstTurttle can have no mid performances. He is firing on all cylinders through the rest of this tournament. I've seen Warchi step up in a big way. You highlighted Rottwen, I tend to agree. And TheRayShadow consistently towards the top of these damage charts. I think the team in its entirety deserves all the praise we can give them.
So we talked about in Picks and Bans. I said, who are we kidding? We're talking about all these assassins. By the end of the game, it's still going to be Merlin and Tiamat fighting for top damage, except NILLL does take top damage in the game at 33,000. I was noticing Sundering Axe doing massive amounts of damage at the end of that game for NILLL. Just 2 of the shield slams over the course of 10 or so seconds, effectively half health Vyye prior to that final fight starting, and I think that ends up playing a role in executing some of those lower health targets. And so I agree, it's not a new brand for the Valhalla Valkyries, but I think it's an ironed out version of the original brand that we saw earlier on this weekend. How does that stand up against some of the top 4 teams that are still remaining in the upper bracket remains to be seen. We're going to watch those games play later today. The losers of those matchups will drop down to play the Wardens and the Valkyries respectively. So we're going to have to see some of those matchups and how some of these momentum teams in the lower bracket end up standing tall. I think it's potentially exciting, though, because really when you get down the stretch, after today we've got 2 more days left in a anything can happen type scenario.
For sure.
When anything can happen, you know, what is that, Murphy's Law? When, like, anything can happen, will happen, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Cole's Law, though, is my favorite. You know what that one is?
Lay it on me.
Thinly sliced cabbage. Warchi standing by for the post-game interview with J-Mac.
I can't believe that one actually got a laugh out of me. That was a good one, Dave. We'll admit. But yeah, I got Warchi, the carry player for the team. I can't call you the hunter player because we haven't seen one of those yet from you, Warchi. Talk to me about game number 2. You know, game 1 we saw, if you count Ao Kuang in there, 11 assassin bans throughout. You really got to kind of dig into the god pool a little bit. You get the nausea back in game number 2. Didn't go so well at the beginning. The first time you got to, got your hands on that one. What was the call for you to go back to that pick and give you the confidence to bring it in game 2?
I mean, it's something that we know it works, so we stick to what we think it works. And it's true that the day 1 wasn't really clear, and well, we're gonna stick to what we know it works. That's it.
Yeah, it seemed to work for you guys real well in this one. Talk about what's going through your minds and maybe even the comms, especially right at the very end of game number 2. I mean, Rottwen goes massive, finds 4 people at the landfall. What was the communication with your team at that moment there when he finds that big pull? You know, NILLL goes down right after, but that turnaround that you guys have.
Not gonna lie, it was a bit chaotic because it was like we're gonna engage, we're gonna just get out and try to save the game, but it was like everyone went crazy and started killing everyone, and we just let's go all in, and that's it. That's it.
Clutter comms, but excitement nonetheless out there. And now maybe you can answer this, for fans out there, a team that seated a little bit lower in the tournament here is your squad with the Valkyries, maybe not expected to make it even as far as you guys have, and now you got pretty much only big hitters from here on out. How does it feel making it so far into the tournament, being maybe considered one of the underdog teams?
We are feeling great, to be honest. We expected to be the underdogs because many names are unknown, but I mean, we are confident. We are feeling great. Day 1 was something to forget and just keep playing like we are right now and rock it.
Yeah, I mean, keep sticking to your game. It seems to be working out for you guys. So congratulations, Warchi, on the 2-0. We'll see you guys later on in the weekend. We'll throw back to Des. Keep it going.
You know, and over the last few months, last couple of years, Chelly, we've had plenty of these tournaments where we talk about the mentality of the underdog team, where you come into the event and you're thinking, maybe we're not the favorites to win this event. Right. But if our goal is to make it as far as we can. We've got nothing to lose. That can sometimes be a really scary mentality to go up against. And the Valhalla Valkyries playing with just a bit of that. And that is it for the lower portion of our bracket matches today. We've got a couple in the upper bracket left to go. Trelly, Niflheim Wargs, Aru Scorpions, and then the Gilded Gladiators and the Eldritch Hounds. And so these are the 4 teams largely predicted to be at this point in this tournament. And it'll set the stage. The winners of the next 2 matches will face off in the winner's bracket final, where the winner will go to the SPL. Gotta be some of the most anticipated matchups of the last 3 days.
No doubt, but one thing I do want to highlight about this kind of bracket is take a look at Wargs, Scorpions, Gladiators, Hounds. They're all on a win streak, right? But 2 of these teams are going to be sent down to the loser's bracket in a bad way, right? Right off a loss. Then look at Valks and Wardens. So far, they're putting together a win streak of their own. Down in the loser's bracket, of course, but once you get 2 or 3 games underneath your belt feeling hot like that, it's very easy to say, you know, whether it's the Gladiators or the Hounds or the Scorpions or the Wargs fall down to the loser's bracket and they have to face one of these red-hot teams that have put together win streaks, it's real easy to forget that you're the higher-seeded team and you should be winning because you just took a hard loss. So I'm excited to see who's going to have to stop these win-streaking losers bracket teams. They're going to have a ton of confidence coming into those matchups.
Wardens especially. I mean, they lose a pretty difficult set up against the Storm, who have since been eliminated. It's a 3-game set. But now the Wardens, they're on a 2-0-2-0 streak in the losers bracket. The Valhalla Valkyries, after dropping game 1 of their first losers bracket set, now have won 2 straight matches in that set, 2 straight matches in this set. So you're absolutely right. It's not only win streaks as far as sets go, 2 each, but it's 4-game win streaks in their last few matches as well. Things going to get interesting down the stretch here. Only half a day and then 2 more days. We're going to qualify a couple more teams, unfortunately, send 2 more teams home today. But we've got upper bracket matches just around the corner. A lot more good Smite and the Smite Pro League promotional tournament still to be had. Stick around. More coming up next.